On. So welcome to Vision, Create, and Grow Your Nonprofit. I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you for being here and for being the kind of women leaders who dedicate your lives to making the world a better place. Being here with you is my greatest joy. And our deepest intention for you is that you are supported in your journey of visioning and creating your future nonprofit or your church or social impact project, or healing center, retreat center. Even if your dream is still a few years away, thank you for resourcing yourself now so that when you are ready, you have the tools, you have community, and even the mindset that you need to birth your project of positive change. So I'm going to take a moment to light a candle just to signify our coming together and stepping into this space. If you have a candle or a sacred object that you also just want to take a moment to have a mindful drop in with, please consider or finding a gesture that's meaningful for you. I'm just going to take a moment to take a breath. Welcome. So I'm Jessica. I'm the organizer of this series and the Women Light Leaders Network, which for 20 years has been a sanctuary of networking and wisdom sharing and community. And I truly believe that collaboration and women resourcing women makes it easier for us to build what we came here to create. So through all 5 of our upcoming Vision, Create, and Grow Your Nonprofit trainings, we are bringing you over a dozen brilliant women leaders who've created and led nonprofits, healing centers, foundations all over the world. And we'll continue to share what we know with you about setting up an organization, running it in ways that are balanced and joyful. So if you would like to receive email invitations for our future Vision, Create, and Grow Your Nonprofit series, please enter your email address here. Just plop that in the chat for you, and we'll let you know as each training is ready to be registered for. So we're going to dive right into introductions. Today we have some just incredible, wise women who deeply, deeply know this world and have just so much to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and give each woman here a minute to introduce themselves, and they'll also be sharing their information with you so that later on, if you want to follow up with them, I highly recommend, if you have questions, if you're needing additional support or consulting, or you need an expert that you can really drop in with, they're going to share how you can stay connected with them and who they are. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. Danielle, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name's Danielle. I'm calling in from Vancouver today, but normally I am in Alberta, Canada. I am a life and leadership coach for women, as well as a nonprofit and social change consultant. My background is in nonprofit development, primarily in the international development sector. I've helped co-found organizations that serve primarily girls and women and different gender equity efforts in Latin America and Eastern Africa, and I'm very honored to be sharing with you all today. Since returning, I lived in Latin America for 7 years, helping develop programs alongside local communities. And since moving back to Canada, I've been focused on helping other visionary women have a positive impact in the world, whether that be through launching a nonprofit, whether that be through fundraising or collaborating with existing organizations or starting their own project. So my info's in the chat, and I'm looking forward to connecting with everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you. Britt, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am Britt Bolnick. I am the owner and founder of In Arms Coaching. I am the co-founder of Pity Posse Rescue, a Bully Breed focused 501c3 organization. I am the co-founder of the Barkyard, a fear and force-free doggy daycare and training facility, which is opening next week. And I'm the creatrix of Sacred Structure and the Bending Time Tools, which I have polished and perfected over 17 years of using them to raise a child as a solo parent while building a thriving business, a badass pit bull rescue, and caring for a marauding bunch of derpy pit bulls and teenaged girls at home. As an expert time witch, I am also the author of a book titled The Magic of Bending Time in Your Sacred Business, Time Management for Freedom-Seeking Entrepreneurial Women and Organizational Skeptics. And I built my business from food stamps and single mamahood to a six-figure business that I run in less than 10 hours a week. I'm in Maine, and I will drop my info in the chat box. Thank you.
Beautiful. Welcome, Britt. Brigitte, welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brigitte, and I am a business coach for women and non-binary people and men who are coaches, healers, mentors that care deeply about people and the planet and want to create more sales and bring in more revenue and redistribute that revenue into social impact initiatives that they care deeply about in the world. I am a recovered nonprofit manager, and my focus now is on redirecting money through corporate and through capitalism in a way that's less toxic. So basically embedding impact initiatives into products and services within your business so that you can niche down your activism and niche down your social impact and create more wealth and resources for yourself, your family, your communities, and your impact initiative without getting burnt out. I'm a mom of a 9-year-old. I moved to Spain 2 years ago. I lived in Berkeley for 16 years. And I'm most committed to building networks and connections among people who are wildly diverse in terms of their socioeconomic background, culture, or ethnicity. And I'll drop my links, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Brigitte. Adriana, welcome.
Thank you, Jessica. And it's so great to be here with all the rest of the panelists and everyone that's here today. I'm just going to put my information in the chat first so I don't forget. I'm in San Francisco, California, and I am an artist first and foremost. My work is all about creative healing and creative expression. I'm an arts therapist, creativity coach, and I make documentary films. And part of what I really love to do and I'm passionate about is really supporting people to use the arts as a vehicle for change for themselves and also for the world in various ways. I want to say personally, I'm in recovery from alcoholism. I've been in recovery for 30 years. I just celebrated 30 years on March 1st, a huge milestone for me. That is a big part of my work is I support people to recover from addiction, substance use disorder, eating disorders, and grief. And that is also what my documentary films are about. And I'll share more about that as we continue. Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. As you can see, women, you are in such wonderful hands here today. We wanted to actually hear from you, audience. We want to open it up for you to share. And I just want to make sure, let's see, everybody shared their contact information. Danielle, Brigitte, did you share your information in the chat? Oh, there we go. You did. Awesome. I didn't see that come in. Okay. So audience, we wanted you to, first of all, don't forget to save the chat. You're welcome to save the chat. You can take a screenshot or copy and paste the contact information of these amazing women, because we do want to encourage you to follow up with them, connect with them, stay connected, stay resourced. We want to hear from you in our chat here. I'm going to go ahead and plop this in, audience share. We'd love to hear in the chat the first cause that lit a fire in your heart, audience. That first cause when you were a girl growing up or a young woman that pulled at your heartstrings. Maybe it was related to animals or something near and dear to your family, or an injustice you learned about in school. But just take a moment to share in the chat, what was that first cause that lit a fire in your heart? Beautiful. Wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Beautiful. I'm excited to also come back to these and read these and be inspired by these. So feel free to take time to look at these as we go into our first round. So we're going to go into our first round, our first question with the panelists. And this is a lightning round. So this is a 1-minute round. And this round is all about intentionality. So the first question we're going to ask our panelists is, oops, I got to put this in the chat. And there's all these messages coming in. I didn't time that very well. Here we go. This is the question, but I will also say it, panelists. The question is, 1 minute, what do we need to plan, ask, or consider before creating our project? What do we need to plan, ask, or consider before creating our project? And Danielle, you're welcome to pop right in.
Great. Yeah, I think this is an excellent question to use to begin. I think the most important thing to do before you dive too deep into the planning process is really, really identify the need. I think lots of times as visionaries, we can get a really great idea, but that doesn't mean that necessarily the need exists. And when I say that, it means that there is a very big need for the project you have in mind, and also that there's a gap in services, right? I think lots of times we see social innovation projects kind of doubling up and creating competition because everyone wants to do their own project and not realizing that sometimes someone's already doing it, maybe someone that is potentially even better equipped to do it than you do. So really connecting with really understanding the need before diving too far in. That includes looking at who might already be addressing the need. And if someone's already doing it, it doesn't mean you give up on your dream. It means you look for ways to collaborate with them, to support them if it's really aligned, especially if they're coming directly from that community that you're aiming to serve. That's everything.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much, Britt.
Okay, so a couple of questions that I think are really, really important to consider before creating your project are, who is your support team? What is the movement or mission that you want to create? Who cares about this movement? Who are your allies? Who are your supporters or future supporters? What is your bandwidth emotionally, physically, and financially? What is your big vision for your project? So like end goal, but also what would success look like at the end of your first year? And whom do you need on board and backing you to start this? So again, who is your village? Who could be your village? And then this is specific for the animal world, but I imagine this is relevant in all nonprofit work. How can you avoid becoming what we call in the rescue world a one-woman circus? One woman holding the whole thing all on your shoulders, all by yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brigitte.
Hi. So for me, I like to reflect on what is my deeper shadow side desire, or what's really driving my need to address this issue. And as a person of privilege, right, if we hold a privileged identity, like the vast majority of us on this call, what is the power dynamic between us and the group or individuals that we seek to serve? Have we received an explicit invitation from those people? Have we been endorsed and given authority and given the go-ahead to collaborate with the initiative holders, the people that receive the services? And are we being informed by them around what is or isn't working and what is or is not needed to further the impact or to improve what's already happening? And are we being mindful of wanting to come in and fix or save, which is common and it comes from a place of good intention, but can actually cause harm, right? So I think that for me is like the core of what to consider as you get started.
Thank you so much. And we're going to go a little deeper into that a little bit later as well. Thank you. Adriana.
Hey, okay, I'm going to be lightning with this one because there's already been so many wonderful things said. And I have this you're not gonna be able to fully see it, but a drawing that says inner calling, curiosity, trust, deep wisdom that I created recently for myself. For me, it's one of the things that's really important is finding out what truly motivates you and what you're passionate about. And you already may have like a clear goal or interest or something you're excited about, but to get down to the nitty gritty, like what is it? What is it in the essence that you're most thrilled, interested, curious about? Because it takes so much to do these kind of projects, building a business, nonprofit, creating a film, etc. And we need that passion and that motivation to sustain it.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go into another lightning round, and then we're going to go deeper as we flow here. So the next question is, what are some of the mistakes you see leaders making when it comes to running a nonprofit? And some of this has already been touched on, but I'd love to just ask this question outright. What are the mistakes or pitfalls that you see?
Thanks so much, Jessica. I actually wrote a free mini book on this, so I'll share it in the chat after, about common mistakes that I see or I've even done. Part of a lot of my coaching and consulting comes from the things that I learned along the way from making from many mistakes. In addition to really identifying the need, I think really repeating some of the things that have already been said. Two of the most important things, or two of the biggest mistakes I see, is when people don't ask for support, they don't seek to collaborate. That kind of one woman circus, I believe, as Britt said, I think is really powerful. Anything we do in the world can be tough. Doing something that's very socially driven, where maybe you're relying more on donations and things like that, can be challenging. So neglecting the recognition that it's always better to collaborate, it's always better to connect, is one of the mistakes that I see. I think people are afraid that might seem like they don't have it all together if they don't have everything perfect before reaching out. So reaching out to folks is really important. And then just really quickly thinking about the financial stability from the get-go. I think in social initiatives, we just only think about the purpose and the mission, and we don't think about how it will sustain itself financially, how we will sustain ourselves, if it's a passion project or if it's something you are doing to generate personal income, and how the project's going to sustain itself. Even if you personally aren't planning on receiving any funding from it, how will that project really sustain itself from the get-go? Don't make it an afterthought.
And we'll be going deeper into things like fundraising, etc., in some of our later trainings. Beautiful. Britt, welcome.
Thank you. I love what Danielle said, and I'll piggyback on that. Making sure that your project can sustain itself and it's not going to be a financial drain on you unless you planned it to actually be that way and you're financially sponsoring it, is huge. That's something that we did with Pity Posse Rescue that really worked from the beginning. Pity Posse Rescue funded itself from the beginning, and I can talk about that later. A couple others I wanted to touch on is the very uncomfortable and potentially shadowy aspect of being very conscious of any martyr or hero complex in yourself. And I think we have some questions that get into that more later, but really checking your own impulses, your own motivation, and making sure that you're not getting stuck in hero or martyr complex. Definitely not DIYing it, not being determined to hold the whole thing yourself, like I mentioned before. And then really some of the mistakes that I see also have to do around people who are incredibly passionate about something, not learning how to delegate and show up in leadership in their organization, which necessitates it sort of being a one-woman circus moving forward. Thank you.
Perfect. Brigitte, and you're welcome to go, just unmute yourself and have at it.
Sure. I think for me, one of the biggest challenges is trying to have all the answers and figure it all out, and kind of going it alone and thinking you have to resolve everything and fix everything, not looking into what's already happening, building partnerships, getting too dispersed and trying to do everything out of a sense of guilt or obligation. I'm not doing enough, volunteering here, building an initiative, trying to support someone else over here. The idea that more is better, and even needing to really root down into how dominant culture and white supremacy shows up in the nonprofit world and in the work of helping and serving. And as icky and gross as that terminology sounds, it really is what I like to begin to normalize as everyday white supremacy. That's things that we're not necessarily consciously aware of, things that are ultimately initially well-intentioned but can cause harm because we're coming at it from a place of more is better. I've got to do more. I've got to fix more. Sometimes it's coming from a shadow place of guilt, which again, let's normalize these feelings. Let's normalize these conversations, right? A lot of harm has happened in the world that these initiatives are seeking to correct around. So I think, to Adriana's point, to everybody else's beautiful points, really going deep underneath the shadows into like, really, why am I doing this? What's driving me? And how much am I trying to do? And is it sustainable? And really niching down and getting clear on that one thing and thinking about how to create a big impact in that one area, as opposed to trying to do tons of different things and getting burnt out.
Gorgeous. Adriana.
Yeah. Stamina, you know, there's so much stamina that's required, and everybody's talking about that in different ways. So for me, part of what I see so many people that I work with that are trying to create projects and build something meaningful is that they give up too soon. And it's so easy to get into it and then start getting discouraged. And I think there's also this idea that it's going to happen really fast. Sometimes we live in this really this culture now that everything, oh, I'm going to make $1 million really fast, or I'm going to, you know, my business is going to grow and I'm going to have all these followers, or there's so many ways people get trapped into this quick success idea. And it takes time. I always say it takes I feel like it takes at least 3 years to really get something off the ground, to truly get it, plant the seeds and really have it come to fruition. So that's one thing, is giving up too soon. And the other thing is comparing to other people, and also having that be a way that we start self-sabotaging. Look at all the success they have. I'll never get there. This will never work for me. So I really have to watch that in myself. And I support so many people, especially women, to look at how they start getting really down on themselves and hard on themselves when they start comparing. And it's really easy to do that these days too. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. So this next round was inspired by a conversation that I had with Brigitte. And then I also love that it's been brought in by some of the other by each of the other panelists as well. And so in future trainings, we're going to go deeper into the creation process, the launching, the sustaining. But I wanted to dive deep into this particular question because it's like being able to kind of dance with the shadows, or kind of the come from, as we're just in looking out and visioning the nonprofit. And I just felt like this was such a wonderful topic to just dive deeply into today, as a preliminary, you know, just planting seeds and kind of metabolizing what you need to, as before you step forward to create your project of positive change. So I'll put the link in the chat, and this just ties into service versus charity. And what was said before, sometimes offering charity or going into a community and trying to be a savior can cause more harm than good. And so how can we, our organization, our project, or we as leaders, truly empower the members of the communities our projects serve? How can we give them voices and spotlight, or support their existing initiatives or leadership? So how can we truly empower or create empowerment And that might not even be the right way to ask that, but love for you to dive in. And each panelist has 2 minutes. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So ladies, you can set your timers for 2 minutes. And Danielle, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah, I was so thrilled to see this question. I think it's very, very important in any field. I think it's especially important with the work that I do. As I mentioned, I do work primarily in international work, so primarily serving historically overexploited communities in Latin America and East Africa, primarily through Ethiopia, through the organization Stephanie and Your Real Girl and Canadian Humanitarian. And so I think it's very critical. I am, born and raised in Canada. I'm a white person that's helping launch and lead these programs with different communities of people of color that have been exploited in different ways, in very serious different ways throughout history. So I think the most important thing is that we really just recognize what our role is. And my role is just really to support the existing needs and goals of the local communities, recognizing what strengths and the privileges that I have that might be able to support these communities and where I can use that, connecting potentially with donors, connecting with grants. I do a lot of grant writing, and we just have not quite been able to localize that effort yet in some of our organizations. So that's where I can kind of use my skills, but really the power, the decision-making power has to stay with the local people. I might feel like sometimes I know a better direction, but I do not. And I think one thing I see a lot of times with international workers is that they think, even I said I lived there for 7 years, I do feel like I have a strong understanding. I was not born and raised there. I did not grow up with the same challenges, and really recognizing that. So when it comes to who holds the power, who holds decision-making power, who's leading the directions, it should be the local individuals. It should be people from the community served. With our organizations, that means in Ethiopia, we have a fully local Ethiopian team that we're there kind of supporting, helping fundraise for, but they're really the key decision makers. Same thing in Guatemala, we have representation. All of our programs are actually led by different individuals from the community served. In Guatemala, where we're gender equity focused, it's primarily led by women, many Indigenous women as well. So really giving them that decision-making power. And I have one more piece, but I'll add that to another question. And thanks so much.
All right,
Okay.
Bridget, welcome.
Thank you. So a lot has already been said about the consent of the folks that you want to serve and making sure that you understand what they want and need versus what you think they want and need. For me, it also comes down to looking at the roots of those needs and desires. So for instance, we are a dog rescue. Most dog rescues primarily take dogs from shelters or owner surrenders and adopt them out. We, from the beginning, have looked at the social causes of animals going into rescue. Why do animals need shelters and rescues? So to that end, we have a free pet food pantry to help folks who love their animals and can't feed them, feed their animals. We sponsor vetting and training for people who really want to keep their animals but can't afford a big vet bill, or training for some basic behavior issues. So we really look at the root cause instead of just putting animals into homes or accepting animals from homes. An important question that I touched on earlier is, can you be honest with yourself about how you want to be needed and what helping other people means to you, and really get clean about that for yourself? Another question that I thought of is, what's your plan for your project for doing more than just giving a man a fish, so to speak? So for instance, we have a free pet food pantry. Many people do come month after month after month to get free pet food, and we're okay with that because it keeps dogs in loving homes. But we also always offer to pay the vetting bills for spaying and neutering those animals if the animals are not fixed. We offer, we will consider to take an animal if the folks feel like they can't take care of it. So really just making sure that you're addressing all of the needs and not just sort of creating a system where people then become dependent on what you're doing. And then the last thing I'll say is that for me, this also is really about boundaries. What are your boundaries, and how can you separate your movement or the change that you want to see in the world with your project, with creating self-sufficiency, avoiding overtaking responsibility and caretaking? Thank you.
Mm, beautiful. Bridget.
Britt, you just made such a great point that I want to kind of expand upon because in the context of your work, it's different than in the context of working with humans, but this idea of questioning ourselves around, are we solely focused on treating the symptoms and a stopgap measure to address an immediate need, which is needed. There is a need to address urgent needs, but also looking at when we look at whether we're a person that holds privilege and influence in the system, and we can begin to do the deeper work to trace the root causes within the system of oppression that give rise to these needs. And then this is the funky, uncomfortable shadow part. Look at where, even though we're addressing symptoms, we ourselves as people of privilege might still be participating and upholding this system of oppression in other ways that are more subtle. And so for me, in this work of, especially if the work that you do serves any community that has been historically marginalized, women that have been victims of domestic violence, people who hold marginalized identity, people who are queer, trans, disabled, neurodivergent, anybody that the system has marginalized, are we as people of privilege seeking to disrupt and address the issue at that systemic level? And are we speaking up about those systemic issues too? Because that's the really uncomfortable part. The part that kind of feels warm and good and gooey is the like, let me help these poor people that are in need. The icky, hard part is like, let me look at this broken system that we live in, how I might still participate in it. And then are there things I need to unpack within my own leadership and within myself that have to do with having been acculturated and educated and raised up in a system that is oppressive. And again, a lot of this is deep subconscious work. A lot of it is looking into healing white-bodied supremacy and things that show up in ways that we may not understand. Like, I'll give an example, and this is a really hard one because I just came through a really painful experience myself because I'm mixed. I look white enough to benefit from the system, but I'm actually a woman of color. I'm half Puerto Rican, and my mother and grandmother were Taino. And so sometimes in the work of this work, we get into a place where we want to be nice and kind, and everything has to be talked about in ways that are like really sweet and gentle when the topics are potentially painful, thick, heavy, and shadowy and dark. And we shy away from the difficult, uncomfortable conversations and the difficult, uncomfortable work because it pulls on us to actually do that deeper shadow work. And it doesn't always feel good. So I think part of it is, are we doing the stuff that feels good and avoiding the stuff that feels not so good? Because it's the stuff that doesn't feel good, the not always smiling and not always being happy about it and always being in a place of joy, which again, we want those parts when we're serving the communities, we get to have that side. But are we doing the mucky other side? And are we allowing space to do the deep inner work, to move through our bodies, the grief and the pain and the stuff that comes through us when we go into the shadow side of systemic oppression, especially as it relates to racial justice and colonization, and specifically the damage and the harm done to indigenous communities is something that I think in particular can be particularly difficult to move through. And then how do we have love for ourselves and compassion and normalize it? Normalize the ick, and then get support around the ick. And ideally, and this is my pitch, and I'm not gonna candy coat and I'm not gonna bullshit any of us. Are we paying mentors, Black mentors, Indigenous mentors, and people of color to guide us in our leadership, spiritual growth, and shadow healing? Because if we're not, and we're calling ourselves spiritual people on a spiritual journey, and we're not using our resources to pay and center and get support from Black and Indigenous and people of color, we are not doing one of the most profound pieces of shadow work and healing that the world and the collective need to truly heal from the harm of racism and colonization. And we can't overlook that in whatever work we're doing. It's so important. and it's going to make everyone's lives better. And of course, people that have the most marginalized identities in the system will benefit from it, but we all benefit when we do that healing. We all do, I promise you.
Thank you so much. So resonating in the chat, so many messages coming in as you're speaking. Adriana, your 2 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Whew, just taking a breath, because it's, just sitting with all of this and holding all that's being shared. Thank you so much, Bridget. So I just want to reference that in terms of empowering, I want to come from a place of integrity in my work as an artist and supporting others as a creative in their creative projects. And my first film was all about my own journey with grief, because I had lost my husband and my father very close together. And it was all about how I used art to move through grief. And so I went through that process. And everything that really I do with other people, I've already gone through the process myself. So I have lived experience. And I also have dealt with the same issues that I'm working with people on. So, I mean, that's also something for me that's been very important. And that helps me empower people, because I have the specific, I know what they're going through and what they're experiencing. That said, my current film is called The Creative High. And it's all about artist stories of addiction and recovery and how they use art to move through that. So guiding them. So we went out and as a team, and I chose 9 different artists to interview. And I really wanted to hear their stories. I wanted to listen to their lived experience, to hear, the difficulty that they went through and how they got to the other side. And it was really important to me in that to talk to a variety of voices, diverse voices, artists of color, artists from the queer community. And in many ways, the recovery community can be very white male. There's a lot of very popular, very dynamic, white male recovery stars out there. And I've even found as a woman filmmaker and as a woman, going out there, that often there's still a lot to kind of overcome. And so it was really important to me to find ways to tell different stories, and also, the fundraising and everything we did to kind of bring the project to life. And it took 6 years. So I want to say that that's part of I had to have a lot of stamina to move through that. And also to keep championing the cause, because to me, substance use disorder, everything that's going on in the world around addiction is one of the fundamental challenges of our day. So I'm very passionate about it and telling different people's stories through film and many other platforms. So.
Thank you. What a powerful round. Whew. So this next round is, I'm calling it a geek out round, where you panelists just take us wherever you want to go. If there's something that has not been named or something you'd like to dive deeper into, I'll type this in the chat so that you have it. 2 minutes to offer any wisdom around creating, launching, sustaining a successful project. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the spotlights of the other panelists so that when it's your turn, boom, you are on the screen. So have fun geeking out, and welcome, Danielle.
Great. So one thing that I thought I'd dive into during this time, just because it hasn't really been dove into quite that much yet, and I noticed that it did come up on the chat, is that idea of the financial stability piece. I think many of us in here are entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so we all know the ebbs and flows of those finances. And then I think one thing that really scares people when it comes to launching a social initiative, whether it is a nonprofit or a church, is that, okay, I've faced these challenges financially with a for-profit venture. How on earth am I going to make this work with a not-for-profit or less profitable venture? So I just think it's just so important that are questions that you're thinking about from the get-go, that you're planning for 2 reasons. First of all, if you're doing it in collaboration with others, if other people are investing, whether it's donors, whether it's foundations, if you're a nonprofit, or even investors, if it's a socially driven for-profit venture, there is accountability to those people that if you receive any funding that you are having success. And most importantly, with the community that you're aiming to serve, if you've started the project, if you've started engaging with that community, offering services to then kind of drop off. We see that so often in communities, that something started, the community gets involved, they invest in it, they support it, they invest their time, and then it stops. And that's just really unfair to those communities. In my kind of background with international development, there's, I've seen communities that have had projects start and stop so many times, they never want to even entertain another project starting because it's just not worth it. So having that financial stability piece in place is so important. I think that in the social initiative, I think a lot of people see the downside of maybe it's not quite as profitable, but there are so many innovative avenues for funding. I really believe that there's more than enough funding out there in the world. There's so much abundance financially. We just need to know how to tap into it. So don't go in it with a lack mindset of this is going to be impossible. Really think creatively about how you can support it. There's so many grants out there. There's so many foundations. And if that's not something you know too much about, then seek someone who can support you with that, because don't let the financial burden or potential financial instability be your stumbling block, because it really is manageable, but it should be seen as a priority from the start to make sure it's sustainable in many ways.
Thank you so much for diving into that piece, Danielle. And I also want to invite the audience, you are welcome to share your vision. What is your dream positive change project? If you already have clarity on what it is that you want to create in your future project, or maybe you already have a project, feel free to share that in the chat. All right, Britt, you're up next.
Okay, I had so much I wanted to share, and we just have so little time. So clearing time in your schedule way ahead to start your project is my thing. And if anybody wants to learn more about that, please get in touch with me, because I can talk about time magic and time witching all day long. But the thing that I think is really important, that really brought us so much success for Pity Posse Rescue, is that we built it like a business. So we started Pity Posse with branding, with marketing, with social media presence, with a real mission and movement that people wanted to join and be a part of. We have people who buy our swag just to wear, just to rep Pity Posse Rescue, which doesn't happen with any other dog rescue that I know of. And for example, that has really helped us build our village. So we got a call late one night. Local vets call us all the time when people can't pay their vetting bill and they want to surrender their dog. And it was a puppy that had been torn apart in a fight, and the people couldn't afford. It was like a $10,000 surgery bill. And so the vet asked us if we would take the puppy, and we decided to take it. And in 24 hours through Facebook, we raised over $10,000 for vetting for that puppy. And that's one of the reasons that having a village is so important. And the other thing that I wanted to say that I think is really important is that that old adage about not being able to feed others from your well is so important. You have to have your own oxygen mask on to do this work first, to do your work first, whether it's financially, emotionally, self-care wise. It is a huge mistake, in my humble opinion, to start either a business or a nonprofit that you expect to feed you out the gate. It's kind of like having a newborn baby because you want another set of hands working on the family farm. It will be 15 years before that baby will actually contribute to the household. So really making sure that your needs are taken care of and your oxygen mask is on first before you start this other thing that is really going to be dependent upon you in many ways, shapes, and forms for the first couple of years of its life. And then the third thing was really just team. Do not DIY this, folks. There's so much support out there. There will be so many people that care about what you're doing and the change that you want to see in this world. Do not do it yourself. Get a team, build your village, and really get that support that you are trying to be a source of. Get it for yourself first.
Thank you so much. Bridget.
Get the money. Learn to fall in love with sales and get out of the bullshit stories that you have to be a broke nonprofit person, broke spiritual healer, or broke mentor. You have to learn that money is an energetic resource. It is unlimited in the system. People have money. Not everybody that has money is an asshole. People are hurting and they're spending money on all kinds of stupid shit that they don't need to fill a void. Let them give that money to you. Ask them for that money. Get better at positioning your services and your offerings confidently. Stop the humility and the underplaying and really get bold about how you position and sell deeply transformational healing services, because people are spending their money on drugs, alcohol, and shoes that are getting stacked up in their closets that they don't need and don't want because they're hurting and they're grieving and they're in pain. So learn how to market and position and message and communicate confidently with specificity and clarity around the value of spending money on healing, personal development, and alternative services. And then in those offerings, get wildly fucking bold and embed your impact initiative into the offering, into the event, into the service, into the core of the business model and offerings. Unfuck it all, make it simple, charge more money, and tell people that there is a triple bottom line. And that when they invest with you, with your brand and your company, they're healing themselves, they're healing the planet, and they're serving a specific impact initiative. And so raise your prices, stop undercharging, and educate people about how and why their money is going to be spent and redistributed differently when they give it to you, because you are a more responsible CEO and conscious steward of that money. When good people have more money, they do more good shit. When bad people have money, they're just bad people with more money. We need more good people with more money to change the system and to spend that money. And so you've got to get out of scarcity. You've got to spend money to make money. And you do need to spend the money on the right things. And that's where you have to be careful, because we are in an industry that is rife with fuckery and manipulation and coercion. And there's a lot of people selling things that are not what you need. And so get a lot of input, ask a ton of questions, be super discerning. Don't ever talk to a coach that says that they're credible and you shouldn't be asking them questions. If they don't want to tell you their resume or why they're a good business coach, or give you examples of how you can succeed or examples of how you can't, run in the other direction. Find advisors and coaches and consultants that are not bullshit people, that have credible, backed up years of expertise, and get really clear and specific about what you need from them, whether it's technical support or support with sales or with fundraising, and get that help and get the fucking money, and learn to embrace and fall in love with sales and asking for money and receiving money and getting excited about selling whatever it is you're selling, whether it's your initiative or your services. Sorry, I'm a little crazy about sales. That's because that's where the shit happens, right? That's where we make it happen. Christine, I don't know, Christine, I have to know you. This woman's energy over here in her box.
Yeah.
I couldn't take my eyes off her the whole time I was talking. Christine, you're amazing.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Wonderful. Adriana, welcome.
Hi, oh my gosh, fire. Let's get the fire going here. I mean, that's what's needed too, is stamina. I mean, I just keep saying stamina because we need we need it to do the important work in this world. We need it. We need that fire. And, you know, Brigitte, thank you for bringing the fire, and Danielle, and, you know, this whole panel, Britt, you know, I'm just so excited about what all of you are doing, and also all of what everyone that is joining us today is bringing and putting in the chat. You know, we want to support you. We're here to tell you it's possible. And I know for me, raising the money and getting to the point where I could successfully put a feature documentary out in the world that now is winning awards, and we're bringing it to places where it's needed. I had to keep digging down into myself and saying, where are my limitations? Where am I getting stuck? Where am I getting too caught in my fear and not going to where I wanted to be of service? And I think that's part of where I have to keep coming back, and I want to support all of you to think about, how do we keep coming back to what is the need, which everybody's talking about out there, what is really needed in the world, and how am I uniquely positioned to support this need? And check yourself there, but how am I uniquely positioned? And for me, a lot of it was, I'm a person in recovery. I'm passionate about recovery. I'm passionate about grief and trauma, and how people can get over it so they can live their lives and be supportive and inspirations to others. The other thing is, I just want to come back to how it's so easy to get competitive. And even, you know, within my team of creating this film, there were times when we got really competitive and we started sort of infighting. And that's, to me, one of also the challenges we have to work with, is how do we come together, really support each other, be kind to each other, listen to what is needed. Mental health, there was a lot of mental health that I needed to come back to for myself to maintain so much of the work I've done over the time of my career, but specifically with my recent project, because I just kept feeling burned out at times, exhausted. There was so much I had to tend to with the people I was working with, and with the team, and with the artists, and also now the broader community that we're connecting with. So the mental health, getting support for yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, etc., is really fundamental. And that's one of the things I also love to do, is support creatives in a, you know, through my therapeutic work, through my coaching work, to get that balance so they can be more successful out in the world. Thank you. And I really invite questions and connecting with people. So I just want you to know I'm here and I'm available. So I'd love to connect more.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Audience, we want to invite you to share in the chat a takeaway from what's been shared so far. If there's something that has really pulled at your heart, go ahead and share in the chat what has been a takeaway, a jewel that you'll be taking with you. And we're going to go ahead and give each of the panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves again, because I know some of you came in a little bit after the first introduction. Panelists, if you can share how the audience can connect with you, any link, and we want to encourage you, audience, to connect, to stay connected with these women. So Danielle, your turn. Oh, you're muted, honey.
There we go. I was just so into listening to everyone else. I didn't want to hop back on quite yet. It was so juicy. But I will put all my contact information in the chat, of course. You can find my website at daniellescogan.com. As I said, I am a social change consultant, so I help women leaders and already existing organizations really build projects that have an incredible impact and are financially sustainable. I think as a consultant, I do offer quite a bit more technical expertise. So all those like nuts and bolts and moving pieces of budgets and strategic planning and organizational planning and fundraising strategy, that is really kind of my area of expertise. As I mentioned, my background is in the nonprofit world. I've helped generate over $1.8 million to different youth, girl, and gender equity focused programs. So that's what I'm really passionate about. You know, as we've all kind of said, the money piece is important. I know that's a stumbling block and a barrier for lots of folks. So kind of helping you do that in a very strategic, balanced way is a lot of what I do. I would absolutely love. I'm also going to share in the chat. I do have a free resource that's kind of highlights a lot of the mistakes that women leaders make and then really provides insights on what you can do instead. And also it's kind of a hands-on guide. There's some reflection questions and activities that you can do as well. So I'm going to drop that in the chat, and I'd love to connect with anyone outside of this as well.
Thank you, Danielle. Britt.
Hi, folks. I just dropped my my stuff in the chat again. I mentor magical and soul-led women, business owners, and multi-passionate entrepreneurs, teaching a foolproof and predictable way to create income, impact, and success while you run your business in 30 hours a week or less. I have gotten my coaching and mentoring portion of my work down to less than 10 hours a week so that I can run my rescue and start our third business. And take really impeccable self-care as I recover from mold toxicity and Lyme from last year. So it's really important to me to support women in understanding that it does not have to take every bit of your time and lifeblood to do the things that you love doing in the world. And I will geek out about this with anybody all day long. I am a time witch, so I'm going to find a tool that I've created for folks based on the magic of bending time in your sacred business. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat so that you can learn how to create your own sacred structure and start bending your own time. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to be here and get to connect with each of you. And thank you so much, Jessica, for such a mind-blowingly beautiful event.
Absolutely. And stay tuned because we're not done yet. We are doing these introductions, and we've got Brigitte and Adriana introducing themselves again in a moment. And then we're going to dive into another round, our Q&A, so you'll be able to ask questions. So Brigitte, welcome. You've got your 1 minute. How can they stay connected to you?
So I put everything in the chat. Facebook is great. I also have WhatsApp here in Spain, and it's my California number because I lived there for 16 years. So you can text me any question you have about sales or social impact. So the work that I do is at the intersection of sales, social impact, and racial social justice. I'm a very unique sales coach, but at the end of the day, I am very much a sales coach. So what I help is with you raising your prices and getting out of overgiving and undercharging and creating mindful and intentional pricing in your business with high tier, high ticket pricing for people who have money and are spending it, and then creating opportunities for sponsorship or accessible pricing, or to take those resources and redistribute them into your own impact initiatives or to the initiatives of others. I'm going to be hosting a social impact workshop soon. So if you want me to invite you to that, it's a very inexpensive, like you pay a marginal amount just to secure your seat type of workshop. And I'm going to be covering 3 different types of social impact models. One is leveraging high ticket services in the coaching, healing, consulting industry. The second one is building sponsorships and accessible pricing without overgiving and undercharging as a whole in your company. And then the third model is the impact initiative pay it forward model. And I'm really excited about all 3 of those models. And a lot of what I can support you with is doing an evaluation of what's best for you, for where you are in your journey, for what your vision and your goals are, because impact initiatives are wildly diverse and there are a million ways to do this. There are no formulas. And so I'm all about meeting you where you are and supporting you with where you want to get to with your impact goals and your income goals, and making sure that you're not broke while you're doing this work. That's super important.
Thank you so much, Adriana.
Okay, so I'm going to drop my info in the chat again. My work with my business with Art Cures, which is all about dynamic pathways to support you with creative healing and expression. So my website's there. Also, my latest film, you can watch my first film, which is about grief and the arts. It's called When the Fall Comes, which is on my website as well. And also my latest film, The Creative High, which I wanted to name for those of you who might be interested in this detail. We are technically a nonprofit because we have a fiscal sponsor. So and there's many places out there that do fiscal sponsorship, and I'm sure many of you know about this, but what's really useful is if you have a fiscal sponsor, you don't have to become a nonprofit, even though maybe eventually you might want to, but it allows you to take in donations and allows you to have people be more interested and willing, because they know they can get a tax deduction if they come into your project and donate. So just wanted to name that. If you want to see the film and you're in the Bay Area, we're going to have a very special recovery screening on March 19th at the Roxy Theater. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. The link for that is in the chat as well. We're partnering with the Castro Country Club, which is a refuge for LGBTQ community, recovery community, as well as a national organization called the Phoenix. So this is a really exciting screening coming up for us. Love to see some of you there if you're interested in the intersection of arts and recovery. And basically, it's a film that just speaks to our humanity. So it appeals to everybody. And I think creativity, we're all creative in our essence. And being able to create as part of what helps us envision and imagine what we want to do with these dreams and vision, with these dreams, is to bring them out. To me, as I really try to support people to think about how we can bring that imagination and that dream into reality and build it out. And art is a way we can do that. Writing, drawing, dancing, really listening to ourselves. And then how do we grow it? How do we grow it into something that's gorgeous, sustainable, really, again, fits the needs out there. So, and there's many other ways. Just email me. You can see through my website different offerings. I'm going to be doing some free and low cost masterclasses coming up soon, as well as a retreat in the Bay Area, restorative arts retreat. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So we have more for you. We are going to dive into our Q&A and whatever unique rabbit holes you want to go into. And before that, we do that, I wanted to, first of all, we want you to feel totally supported in your journey towards your future nonprofit, your social impact project, your church, your healing center. So we have an invitation for you. Even if your dream is still a few years away, we invite you to continue to resource yourself with our entire expert team of brilliant women leaders who know the path, who've created and led nonprofits, healing centers, foundations all over the world. So I'd like to invite you to attend all of the upcoming trainings in our Vision, Create, and Grow Your Nonprofit series, so that when you're ready, you have the tools, the community support, and even the mindsets you need to birth your project. So stay connected to each one of the panelists here, but I'd like to tell you about our upcoming trainings in our series and how you can access all of these trainings essentially for free. So I'm just going to go into a screen share so that you can actually see our lovely trainings here. All right. So coming up next is how to plan and prepare for your future dream nonprofit or project of positive change. Today, we only touched on this, but in this training, we're going to go deeper into what you need to know and plan for beforehand to step forward to create your dream and build a project that is viable and nourishing for you and your community. Then we go into how to create and launch. What does it actually take to get a philanthropic project off the ground or a brick and mortar project off the ground and thriving? We're also going to dive into how do you turn your current business into a philanthropic project of positive change? Do you actually need to set up a nonprofit or an organization, what can you do start, maybe even starting right now with your current business? And then finally, we're going to talk about, okay, once you have your future project, how do you grow it? How do you sustain it? We'll talk more about fundraising, leadership, and community building. And you can attend all of these trainings for free as a member of our Rise Sisterhood. Most of our panelists for this series are members of our Rise Sisterhood. And as a member of our Rise Sisterhood, you also get a free pass to our money elevation trainings. We're passionate about prosperity being in the hands of women like you. It was said earlier, because when women healers have money, we invest back in our communities. We support social justice and humanitarian causes. When women healers have money, we fund education and initiatives that support women, children, equity and inclusion, and the health of the planet. So our money elevation series, bear with me for a second, I'm just dancing with technology. Wanted you to just see what's included in the series. The other thing I want to say is that your personal money shadows will often show up in your organization. So to support you to lead your future organization wisely and opulently, our money elevation trainings are led live on Zoom, just like we are here today, by women, certified money coaches, business coaches, and financial coaches. And if you have a book in you, you want to write a book in the next few years, you'll also enjoy our 2023 Write, Publish, and Launch Your Book training series led by award-winning, multiply published, best-selling women authors and writing coaches who are all members of our Rise Sisterhood. And we'd love to invite you to join us. All of these live virtual trainings that I just mentioned with these extraordinary women experts are included in our Rise Sisterhood membership, and you'll get all the recordings. And also, you get monthly networking. You can start networking now with women in the positive change world and surround yourself with heart-centered women leaders all over the globe. And you also get unlimited business sister mind circles. Come workshop any part of your business and receive high-level business knowledge from business coaches and supportive women entrepreneurs who are all part of the Rise Sisterhood. So Rise Sisterhood membership is only $111 per month because we're dedicated to you creating your dream project, creating financial freedom, birthing your book, having opportunities to network and grow your existing business. And we'd like to invite you to join today for $1. Please come, just try it. There's no contract. You can come check it out. And I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat. Get that link for you. All right, so I'm just putting that link to join Rise Sisterhood in the chat. You can go ahead and click the link right now. Use code 33DREAM. That's just today's date, 33DREAM, to join today for $1. This code does expire when our Zoom session today ends, so you can go ahead and join and just immediately start RSVPing for upcoming networking and trainings and bring your biggest dreams with you. This, of course, your membership is 100% tax deductible. You can come try it out. There's no contract, and you're joining nearly 100 heart-centered women doing meaningful work all over the world. So join us to continue learning and being surrounded by women like these panelists here, women like you who are dreaming big dreams and taking steps forward. Please do join us because that code does expire as this Zoom session ends, but you're invited to join us. All right, so let me go ahead and get all of the panelists spotlighted because we're going to go into our Q&A and open it up for you, wise women, to ask your questions. So let me go ahead and get all of our wise sisters today spotlighted. And thank you so much for bearing with me while I dance with technology. All right, so here we go. So we were going to do kind of a final wisdom round. And so, but I want to leave this open because we're technically opening into our Q&A because I do want to make sure we answer a bunch of questions. So just to put the question out there, because it may tie into, it actually ties into some of what Adriana was sharing about earlier. What can women do starting right now? Sorry for the typo, perhaps even in the current business to move towards their dream project. Adriana talked about teaming up with kind of like another organization. And so I want to just put that question in the chat. So if any of the panelists want to speak to that, and then participants, you're also welcome to add your questions to the chat. One of the questions that came up a little bit earlier was from Sarah Bergman, and I'll put this, and it was, I think this would be a great first question. When and when not to invest in your business, especially when your business is not making income. What I think you meant, Sarah, was when or not to invest in your dream project and when your current business is not making income. I think that's what you mean. So wherever you panelists want to take this, we don't necessarily have to hear from all four of you, but if there's a couple of you that just really want to dive into either of these questions, and then we'll ask the next question from the audience. So you can just unmute yourself in any order.
I have a thought, and this has been said in different capacities before, but I really think that it is an absolute, it's a security blanket to make sure that you are pulling people in, whether you're writing grants or getting donors or just building your village of people that support you, but that you are not counting on your money funding your passion project. And I forget who said it, so apologies, but there is so much money out there. And any of the women in here, I feel fully confident that you want to do things, that you will have an entire village of people behind you. So instead of thinking like, how can you pay for it? What I'd really love to see folks thinking is, how can I create a movement that other people want to join and other people want to support, so that it's not your money and you're not, teetering on the precipice of real financial risk, getting your work and your mission out into the world.
I'm just gonna, Britt, that's great. I'm so glad you said that in such a concise way, and that's so important. And I felt that I've had the same experience, and there's so much money out there, and just, yeah. So dovetail off of that. But I also just really want to say briefly that in informational interviews, that was something that I remember when I was first really building my business and starting out, was I did that, and people also asked me to do that with them. And I love supporting people. Just talk to other people that you're inspired by. See if you could take them out to coffee or for a meal and ask them how they did it. And so that's just one really simple thing that, especially at the beginning, when you have a seed, but you're not really sure where to go. There's so many women in this community that Jessica's created that love to do virtual teas. So connect with other women and or connect with other men as well, but and get their experience. And that really supports me, and that can support you too, those kind of resources.
I have another question from the audience, but I want to just check in to see if anyone else wanted to answer either of the other two questions that were posted, just so I'm not stifling wisdom. No?
I was just going to quickly just hop in about the question about like when your business is not making money. I think maybe that is a good reflection of maybe this is not the best time to start something new, right? Just to start from a place of abundance and sustainability. Also, if you are planning, I'm not sure what kind of project that question refers to, but if it is a nonprofit, there are many nonprofits that are not supported by the founders themselves financially. So even if you're not bringing in funds, that could still be an opportunity for you to have a nonprofit or fiscal sponsorship, which is, I would highly recommend as a route. And then there is opportunity for that nonprofit to be sustainable through grants or donors and things like that, even if you personally don't have the capacity to fund it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, wise women. Let me pull up this next question and then I'll seek in the chat for other questions that may have snuck past my radar. So this next one, bear with me for a sec. Okay, so, and this was from Alana. Alana, she asked, how can I value my work, or how can we value our work, receiving good income for our work while helping those who are struggling at a disadvantage? And I think that's something that a lot of healers do dance with. It's like, well, I'll let you dive in.
So I think that this is a really important question, because I think that the topic of valuing your work has so much to do with your own boundaries and really being comfortable with charging what your work is worth. And if you tend to shy from asking for your value in your business, there's probably going to be some sort of equal overgiving or sort of, crossing over of your boundaries in your nonprofit work as well. I think that understanding the value of what you offer and how to really stake your claim as this is something that you do and that really has value and that you deserve to earn a really healthy income from it is something that's really important to come to terms with and to really develop a comfort with, potentially before you start to work in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, and I would add that a lot of the work around money mindset and money manifestation is really superficial and can actually be harmful in many ways, because it creates this disillusion that all we have to do is create new stories or speak new words in our brain to suddenly attract and manifest lots of money. And this is some of the stuff that's in the coaching industry that I think really we need to go deeper and look at. For many of us, we actually have and hold deep family and ancestral money trauma in our lineage, in our spirits, and in our bodies. And that goes for everybody. I mean, people of privilege, people who hold marginalized identities, particularly those who hold marginalized identities, there have been incidents of money being stolen, withheld, land being taken. And then even among communities of privilege, there are also similar stories. And so doing deep work to heal money trauma and money wounds goes way beyond changing our beliefs about money and speaking out abundance manifestations to the universe to attract money. It's doing trauma-informed, somatic, deep embodiment work to find and heal trauma in the body around scarcity, to really unpack with safety, potentially with a mentor, the deeper money stories and the beliefs around wealth, having money, holding money, asking for money, being a good steward of money, like really writing out and really understanding all the different narratives that we have acquired that are not necessarily our own, that we didn't create, and how they've been imprinted on us. And then really consistently working on repatterning and reprogramming ourselves at the level of our brains and our bodies. And it takes work. And I think that's, again, part of the harm in the coaching industry is like, we just wave the wand, we get into a good space, and then all of a sudden, all the money issues are supposed to go away. And then they don't. And then it's like, but what am I doing wrong? I'm doing the things. And so money stuff is at those levels of like the body, the epigenetics, the imprint, right? How does our nervous system get around money, selling, making offers? What goes on? How do we heal that? And then there's the practical side of actually learning how to make money, which is not something that many of us were actually raised to know how to do. And so why are we so critical of ourselves not doing something well when it's not something that we were raised around or shown how to do over a significant enough period of time that it would get invested and embedded into our psyche to know how to do, right? Like, unless your father was a CEO of a company and you like followed him around in his sales team, how the fuck would you know how to do sales? These are not spiritual, intuitive behaviors. Energetically, we came from barter systems. We can grieve and mourn the death of barter. But until spiritual people can go to a fucking Whole Foods and do a shadow healing circle to pay for their groceries, you're going to have to get paid with money. It would be great if you could go to Whole Foods and do a circle and a shadow fucking healing and get a year's worth of groceries from Whole Foods for that. But that's not how the system works. So capitalism is a rigged and broken system. And we have to learn to live in the shadow and the light, in the duality and the complexity of the system was built on the back of slavery and oppression. We can accept that, name it, and acknowledge it. And also, for us to opt out of the system in and of itself is a privilege. To go live off grid on an eco farm with a bunch of cool hippie friends is not something everyone has the opportunity to do. Some people have kids and elders and other responsibilities. If people can do that, that's fucking amazing. But not everyone can do that. And so if you have to exist in the system and pay for healthcare and childcare and food and housing, and all those things are expensive because of the system, we do have to learn to repattern and rewire and find a way to function in the system in ways that are less harmful and that feel more aligned, and to get behind them. But again, for me, this stuff is so hyper simplified in the coaching industry, and it shouldn't be. And it's really harmful because it's complex, nuanced work, and you should never beat yourself up if it feels fucking messy or uncomfortable, or it's not coming all together for you with the snap of a finger. It's okay.
Thank you. So the next question that we want to go into, because we just have a few minutes left, is tips on how to build an aligned team. And I love this because I'm passionate about collaboration, teams, women coming together, team building. So I love this question. I will name, there was another question that was incredibly juicy, which was about like, how do you find out about the best like entity structure for a positive change project? And then how do I figure out how much it costs to set up an entity, whether it's a church or B Corp or that kind of thing. And we actually have a couple of resident accountants who and women who can speak powerfully to these like logistical questions in upcoming trainings. So I just wanted to name that. These are women who've worked with, nonprofit companies, $1 million companies, like can really speak to like what you need if you're going to grow and scale as well. So I wanted to name that. But our next question that we'll ask here today, this is the perfect constellation of women to answer this, is any tips on how to build an aligned team? Before we go into this, I'll also just name about 5 more minutes to join the Rise Sisterhood if you feel called to. I just want to put in that little plug because that code ends when the Zoom ends. Okay, let's open it up for the question, how to build an aligned team.
I'll answer really quickly because I think, there's so much juiciness in like having a team, obviously where your visions are aligned and the passion and their synergy. As you know, lots of times my brain goes to some of the more technical and logistical pieces. I do think that's one of my strengths and sometimes a weakness, but I think it's really important to have a team with diverse skills. When I first co-founded my nonprofit, it was led by myself and another very visionary woman. We were both educators, so excited. We were not accountants, we were not lawyers, and we really had to kind of build that knowledge and then kind of backtrack. So my recommendation when building a team, so if you're running a nonprofit, one of the first steps you need to do is find that board. And that's why starting that network is really important. Really looking for people with diverse skill sets. You still want the passion to be aligned. I would strongly recommend having an accountant or a finance person on your team just to keep it super technical. And if you have someone with a legal background, if you have someone on your board or even porter that then that will also save you money, potentially down the road. If a board member is a lawyer, then you won't always be outsourcing for just even the smallest questions. So really kind of looking at the skill set and having a diverse skill set on your team is really important.
We also looked at, so from the very beginning, we looked at the pillars of the work that needed to be done. So we had an adoption team, a foster team, a social media team, a training team. So we looked at what the tasks were that had to happen on a day-to-day basis in the organization. And then I looked at what my weaknesses were. So my weakness is across the board, detail-oriented things. I am big picture, I am visionary, I'm amazing at that. I'm terrible at little details and the day-to-day minutia. So most of our people are really good at details, creating SOPs and following them, and the day-to-day stuff. We also look at what needs to be done that isn't getting done. So as an example, we have an entire volunteer position. All she does is write thank you notes. So anytime any of us want to thank someone for something, we just send her the address and what we want to thank them for. And she has these beautiful branded stationery, and she just spends an hour to a week writing thank you notes. And that's what she does for our organization.
Anyone else want to answer this?
You could just chime in for one moment, just
Yeah.
to say that I really partly follow my gut, really listen to, does this person, do I feel comfortable working with this person? Is this person, are our values aligned? Do we feel, is there, do I see and am I inspired by them? Do I feel like they're in their integrity? Those kind of things. And then as we go along, I mean, we get to keep reassessing. And I think having really good communication, taking time to be transparent, talking about things over time. Again, because these projects, they take so much energy and there's so much minutia. That was also mentioned in the chat. There's so much admin stuff we have to contend with behind the scenes of just the excitement that fuels us. We have all that stuff to do. So having a lot of support to help us with that, but also just being generous with each other. Like I mentioned, my producer and I, that we had some trouble along the way with in our making the film, partly because we were exhausted. But we worked really hard at coming together and talking through it. And now we're stronger than ever, because we've been able to really find those connections and recommit to the passion behind the project and how we want to be of service.
Well, we are officially right at our time. We did such a great job. We crammed a lot of wisdom in there. What I will invite everyone here to do, and I know I've said this before, please save the chat. Not only because the contact information links just your direct line to these incredible women, like take it, take the connection that's given to you. So please follow up with them, take their contact information with you. But also there was such great conversation and questions happening in the chat that we weren't able to get to. I actually copied as many as I could because we want to weave them into our future panels. But such great back and forth and just such supportive spirit to just be able to go back almost like a journal and revisit the chat and just continue to metabolize what has come through here today, not only from the wisdom from the panelists, but just the connection in the audience and all of the resourcing. And it's just been really wonderful. So it's been so heartwarming for me to be here, and thank you all so much for coming and showing up for your dream and showing up for your future nonprofit or project of positive change. And thank you so much to Danielle, to Britt, to Brigitte, to Adriana. I love you all as sisters in community, and it was really such an honor to share this time with you. Thank you, thank you. I know we're busy women, but I so appreciate you being here across time zones and all the things happening in life. So really, really appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and end by turning off the recording. I'm happy to stay for a few more minutes, but you ladies, panelists, are welcome to trickle off. I'm open if we want to answer a few more questions, but we'll go ahead and sign off officially from this event. So thank you so much.